Every time you open a cabinet door, pull out a desk drawer, or take a book from a shelf, there is a good chance you are touching MDF without even realizing it. It is a type of engineered wood board made from wood fibers bonded together under high temperature and pressure. It is hard to believe that a simple MDF board may require nearly 20 years to prepare the raw materials. But behind its simple appearance is a complex manufacturing process that combines forestry, mechanical engineering, chemistry, and modern industrial production lines. So how can a pine tree in the forest be transformed into a finished MDF board? Few people realize that before MDF was invented, the furniture industry relied mainly on natural wood. Wood processing often produced large amounts of sawdust and wood chips that were discarded. As the demand for furniture continued to grow, engineers began looking for ways to turn these seemingly low-value wood materials into a new product that could be manufactured on a large scale. By the mid-20th century, this idea gradually became a reality. They separated the wood into small fibers and then compressed them into a new material with a smooth surface that was easier to process. The result was MDF, which quickly became one of the most important materials in the modern furniture industry. But before it can become a finished MDF board, everything starts with a tree. The journey of an MDF board does not begin in a factory. It begins in raw material forest plantations. Here, seeds are collected from the healthiest pine trees and planted in specialized nursery trays. After germination, the seedlings are cared for in nurseries for about 7 months before being transplanted to the field. Unlike many other industrial crops, pine trees used for MDF production require many years to mature. During that time, the forests are carefully managed to control weeds, diseases, and insects that could affect the growth of the trees. A pine tree can take about 15 to 20 years to grow. After that period, trees that have reached the appropriate size are ready for harvesting. Before harvesting begins, forests are usually inspected regularly to identify diseases, dead trees, or areas that may affect wood quality. This is an important step because the quality of the raw material will directly affect the quality of the MDF board later on. At many modern forest plantations, harvesting is carried out using massive specialized harvesting machines. In just a few seconds, a single machine can grip the tree trunk, cut it at the base, remove the branches, and cut the trunk into standard length logs at the same time. The logs are then loaded onto trucks and transported to the factory, where the journey of turning a tree into MDF truly begins. After being transported to the factory, the pine logs are stored in massive log yards before entering the processing line. However, the outer bark is not suitable for MDF production because it can increase impurities and affect the quality of the final product. For this reason, the logs must first pass through a specialized debarking system, usually a large drum debarker. Inside this continuously rotating steel drum, the logs collide and rub against one another, causing the bark to gradually separate from the wood. The removed bark is often not discarded. At many MDF factories, it is collected and used as biomass fuel to provide part of the energy needed for the production process. As soon as the bark is removed, the clean logs are sent to one of the most important machines in the production line, known as a wood chipper. The purpose of this system is to turn large tree trunks into wood chips of the proper size for the next processing stages. Inside the machine, rotating discs or drums equipped with multiple sharp blades continuously cut the wood into thousands of small pieces within a short period of time. Depending on the factory design, an industrial wood chipper can process many tons of wood every hour. The result is a supply of relatively uniform wood chips, which helps make the fiber production process more efficient in the stages that follow. At this point, the trees that once stood in the forest have been transformed into an entirely new form of raw material. In a modern MDF factory, almost no part of the tree goes to waste. However, before that happens, the newly produced wood chips must go through an important inspection step. A vibrating screening system sorts the chips by size to ensure that the raw material is as uniform as possible. Pieces that are too large are usually sent back to the chipper for reprocessing, while particles that are too small are separated from the main production stream. The interesting part is that many of the rejected materials do not become waste. Bark from the debarking process, along with wood chips that do not meet specifications, is often collected and used as biomass fuel. At many MDF factories, this fuel is used to generate heat for the later stages of the production process. At this stage, the wood chips are still too coarse to be turned into an MDF board. To solve this, they are fed into a high-pressure vessel called a digester, where hot steam softens the wood structure before further processing. This step allows the wood fibers to separate more easily without being excessively damaged. Next, the softened wood chips enter a defibrator. Inside this machine, high-speed rotating metal discs separate the chips into individual fibers. As a result, the raw material is no longer made up of hard wood chips, but has been transformed into millions of extremely small wood fibers. These fibers are the core component of MDF, and are also the reason why this material has a much more uniform structure than natural wood. At this point, millions of wood fibers have been produced, but they still cannot bond together to become MDF. Next, the fibers are sent into a blending system where synthetic resin is sprayed evenly onto the surface of each fiber. This resin acts as a binder, helping the fibers bond together during the pressing process later on. However, the newly formed mixture still contains a relatively high amount of moisture. As a result, the wood fibers continue through a hot air drying system to reduce their moisture content to a level suitable for the board forming stage. This is a very important step, because moisture levels that are either too high or too low can affect the quality of the final product. After leaving the dryer, the wood fibers are ready to be formed into MDF boards. Instead of being pressed directly into a board, the wood fibers must first be distributed into a uniform layer known as a fiber mat. On the production line, the fibers are continuously spread onto a long conveyor belt by specialized mat-forming systems. The goal is to ensure that the material is distributed evenly across the entire width of the future MDF board. Once deposited, the fiber layer is leveled and passed through a pre-pressing stage to reduce its thickness and make the mat more stable before hot pressing. In many modern factories, sensors or even X-ray scanning systems are used to monitor material uniformity in real time. Only after meeting the required standards is the fiber mat transferred to the most important stage of the production line. This is the stage that determines whether the loose wood fibers will truly become MDF. After being formed, the fiber mat enters a massive hot pressing system, where high temperature and pressure are applied simultaneously across the entire material. Under these conditions, the resin that was previously sprayed onto the fibers begins to cure, bonding the wood fibers together into a single solid structure. At many factories, this process is carried out using continuous presses that can stretch for hundreds of feet, allowing MDF to be produced almost without interruption. After leaving the press, the MDF board is cooled, sanded to create a smooth surface, and cut to the required dimensions. At this point, a finished MDF board has officially been created. Although it has become a finished MDF board, the product at this stage is still only a raw panel. To turn it into a material that can be used in real furniture, MDF must go through several additional finishing and manufacturing processes. Depending on its intended use, the surface of the board may be covered with melamine or other specialized decorative layers to increase durability and improve appearance. The MDF boards are then sent to furniture manufacturing facilities, where they are cut, drilled, and machined by modern CNC equipment according to design specifications. Finally, the individual components are assembled into wardrobes, desks, bookshelves, and many other products. At this point, the decades-long journey of a pine tree has been completed in an entirely new form. The next time you see a familiar piece of furniture, you may look at it a little differently. Behind that simple, flat surface is not just an engineered wood panel, but the result of many years of growth in the forest and a series of technologies that transformed a tree into an entirely new material. MDF is just one of countless examples showing how the modern world is built on processes we rarely get to see. Every object around us has its own journey, often much longer and more complex than its appearance suggests. Which stage of the MDF production process did you find the most impressive? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to continue exploring the hidden stories behind the everyday objects around us with Mido Explained.